Yo guys, welcome to the Zelda fiction. Today we are gonna see, what if Naruto got exiled from Konoha and got Harem? Part 2. If you end up liking this video, please consider subscribe, so without further ado, let's get into the video. Goraikou, Asuma, Hinata, and Mika continue to talk along with Kakashi and Anko, who also came in 10 minutes after the Youkai left. Asuma already had his clothes back on since he was told that he would be able to leave after a final checkup. It's amazing how the doctors and nurses in the hospital were after their training from Tsunade. Anko, why do you torture me so much? The Sarutobi asked, annoyed that she kept taking away his cigarettes. The snake mistress put on a cute innocent face and asked him, whatever do you mean? The wind using Jonin gave her an irritated look as his eyebrow twitched. Everyone laughed at his misfortune. So Asuma, what happened to you and your team? If I heard correct, your team went up against 2 of the Akatsuki. The copy ninja asked, honestly curious. The bearded man looked at his fellow Jonin and replied, we were holding our own for a while, when only one Akatsuki member was fighting us, as the other members sat on the sidelines before they took us seriously. Then we were utterly overwhelmed. Everyone's eyes widened in shock. Then how did you survive? Anko asked incredulously. If they had a plan that got them out safely, then she wanted to know. She may not be well here, but she wasn't ready to die yet. Asuma chuckled a bit. I would like to think of it as divine intervention. You know of the Shirayure, correct? At this, the Sharingan user and interrogation mistress was floored. He's A-ranked borderline S-ranked in the bingo book by nearly decimating the Sound Village and single-handedly going against an Akatsuki army that was trying to take both of Kumo's Jinchuriki as well as the Mist Country with their hidden village. Kakashi said in seriousness. What happened between him and those 2 Akatsuki? Anko asked. The Phantom Shinobi was practically a hero in her eyes. When she heard about the Sound Village being nearly destroyed by him, she wanted to meet him then. Asuma recalled the battle in detail to satisfy the group in his room. When he finished, everyone's respect for the swordsman went up a notch. Everyone was satisfied with the story, but for Anko, she still had one question. Where is he now? At this, Asuma, Goraikou, Hinata and Mika faltered a little with their emotions, but quickly hid it. He's somewhere in the village, Goraikou started but was cut short when killer intent pulsed in the village. All of them went shinobi mode, and the silver-haired ninja said, something's going on in the forest. The provocative Kunoichi stepped forward, looking back with a grin. Well then, let's crash this party. As those words left her mouth, all of them, including Asuma, hopped out of a window and ran towards the source of the killer intent, with other shinobi making their way there, including the former Rookie 9. Tsunade woke with a start, sensing dark chakra in the forest part of the village. Most likely in a training ground by the border of Konoha. But where are the Anbu lady Tsunade? Shizune and an injured Anbu rushed in her office. Ma'am, it's the Uchiha and his team. They came and intruded the village. Said the wounded Anbu. Tsunade looked at the ninja in shock. What happened to your squad? The village leader asked worriedly. They were killed, the Anbu said with grief in his voice. Tsunade clenched her teeth in anger. Tora. Did they say anything that may help us know what they are after? She asked with a calculative mind. Well, Tora started. They said that they had a ghost to put to rest, the Hokage's apprentice, gasped softly, and Slug Princess's eyes narrowed in worry. Naruto, she moved to get up but noticed something different about herself. Her clothes were a little baggy, she felt stronger, and above all, she felt younger. Is that supposed to happen? This will have to wait. The fire shadow thought. Shizune. Heal Tora and summon 2 Anbu squads. The blonde-haired woman barked. The Mednin bowed and did her tasks at hand. They need to be taken care of now. Tsunade thought angrily. The Konoha shinobi arrived to their destination and hid in the trees and was shocked at what they saw. Is that the Uchiha and his team in the Akatsuki cloaks? Anko asked. Yeah, and they're fighting that man with a mask. Replied another Jonin. His swordsmanship is remarkable. Height said in admiration. It had been a long time since he has seen such talent in Kenjutsu. It seems as though he mixed a combination of styles and flowed them into his own technique. The sickly man observed as the Youkai blocked and parried both Sasuke's and Suigetsu's strikes. The swordsman of the leaves couldn't tell what the techniques that the ghost nin used, but he knew that it was 2 disciplines from the shifts at his attacks and defense. The Kenjutsu user hoped he survived so he could get a chance to test his swordsmanship with a man. Excuse me. Everyone looked back with their guards up and kunai in hand, only to see Shira standing on the ground, looking their way. I'm asking all of you to please do not interfere in this battle and head back a bit. I would like to fight without the girl on Sasuke's team, sensing you as you may be a scapegoat should they try to escape. Some of the ninjas, like Kiba, were offended, while others nodded in understanding. Before Kiba could retort, a voice said, do as he asks. Everyone looked to their right to see Jiraiya, Shizune, and Tsunade. All of the ninjas nodded. Thank you. The masked man said and puffed from existence. Tsunade smiled. Always the Kage Bushin, huh? She thought to herself. Shira slashed at Yugo vertically, while cursed man morphed his arm into spikes to block and parry his strike. While he did block his attack, he couldn't parry because of the strength behind it, cutting into his arm and forcing him through 2 trees. The orange-haired ninja looked up only to see the phantom shinobi rushing to him at high-rated speeds. Man. This guy is unrelenting. The tall man thought frantically as he dived to his left to avoid the oncoming swing where his body was a second ago. Sujetsu jumped in and clashed his sword against the Yurei. That was Zabuza's Zanbatsu. The masked man stated, remembering Zabuza and Haku. Yeah, it was. But he's not around to keep it sharp, so I thought I could do it for him. Sujetsu said with a vicious grin and swiped at the blonde-haired man's thighs. Instead of flipping back like Sujetsu wanted him to, Shira phased out from the attack and phased back inside Sujetsu's guard, hitting his chin with the bottom of the sword and followed up with the blade of his weapon. Like his namesake, Sujetsu turned into water and let the sword pass through him only to see a handful of electricity coming for his face. Raiden. Inadamashu. Lightning style. Lightning bolt hands, the Yurei shouted. No. The liquefied ninja thought before Sasuke blocked it with Chidori, saving him and also entering a power struggle with the masked ninja. Shira smiled beneath his mask as he put his sword in his right hand on his back and pushed harder. Sasuke attempted to overpower him by putting more chakra into his Chidori, transforming the attack into a Rikiri. Give up and make this easier on yourself. Sasuke said as he smirked arrogantly, activating his fully matured Sharingan. The golden-haired man simply shook his head. Watch closely. The Yurei whispered. The pattern of Shira's lighting discharge changed into a contained motion, like a Rasengan, but became more intense as razor winds were being added into the attack. Senpuu Kiri. Whirlwind blade, the wolf-masked man said intensely, surprising and angering the uchiha. No. He just changed his attack and added wind into it. Sasuke knew that if this attack hit him then he and his team were finished. The raven-haired Avenger put more chakra into his attack to protect himself. So you're putting more chakra into your attack? The ghost nin asked only to feel chakra build up in the uchiha's right hand. Naruto. QB said, sensing the chakra build up too. I know, he responded back to her, already having an idea on what his opponent's next move was. Sasuke created a black Chidori in his right hand and planned to pierce his lung. Kuro Chidori. The youngest uchiha shouted. The Yurei countered and surprised his opponent. Goraikou. Rising sun, he called fiercely as he rammed it into Sasuke's second attack, causing a huge explosion and made them bounce along the ground. Sasuke used chakra on his hands to grip the ground to slow himself down and adjust his body. After successfully regaining his bearings, he charged at the swordsman with his team closely behind. Shira flipped through the air, applied chakra to his feet and bounced off the ground and charged towards Team Taka, his blade in hand. Naruto, be careful, they look like they have a plan for you. Amaterasu warned. Naruto nodded and asked deviously, Harasu-chan, wanna play? Amaterasu gave a predatory grin. Tag me in, Naruto-kun. The blonde-haired man smirked behind his mask and the holy wolf appeared running next to him in a flash of light with a Zanbatsu on her back called the Eighth Wonder, surprising everyone. Yubi really wanted to help, so she gave her host a boost in power. Naruto felt it and thought, thanks Kaiu-chan. He felt a nudge in his mind as a "you're welcome" response. He can summon without hand seals. Kakashi asked in surprise. It's a wolf, but it seems different, the Sharingan user thought to himself, unable to explain why the canine seemed so different. Kiba's partner Akamaru looked at the wolf in awe and fear and took a step back. What's wrong, Akamaru? Kiba asked in concern. The dog did not reply, but kept its gaze on the white wolf slightly shaking in his place. Kiba followed his gaze. That wolf summon has Akamaru shook up. Those around the Inyazuka looked at him. Whatever it is, that wolf isn't ordinary. Kakashi looked at the crimson-cloaked man. I looked at his techniques and I couldn't copy them. Sasuke won't be able to copy them either. The silver-haired shinobi narrowed his eyes at the crimson-cloaked ninja. Just who are you? Sasuke summoned a battle hawk and got on top of it. Give me some wind. He ordered his team. The summoned hawk gave a mighty flap of its wings, Karen commenced a futon. To Toppa, Sujetsu swung his Zanbatsu so the flat side caused a great wind, Jugo blew a futon. Renkiden and Sasuke finished it off with a Kaiten. Ryuka no Justu. Causing a gigantic fire dragon to descend upon the opposing Shionbi. The Konoha nins felt the intense heat from where they were. Everyone looked with wide eyes. Such an attack would Niji started. Suiton. Sugazu water style. Great Fang whirlpool, a voice shouted from the roaring flames and caused everyone to look at the source of the voice. The fiery dragon collided with a vast whirlpool with fang-like waves and cancelled each other out, causing steam to spread throughout the area. Using the mist as a cover, Amaterasu went in to attack Suigetsu, while Shira lived up to his name and became intangible, reappearing behind Sasuke and attacking with a horizontal slash. The Sharingan user blocked with Kusanagi and flipped Shira in front of the hawk, and the bird summon slashed at him with its talons and blood sprayed in the air, only to change into water. Sasuke's eyes narrowed and felt a presence behind him and dodged the kick. The Yurei landed on the hawk's head while finishing his hand signs. "Sorry Hawk-san, but I need you out." Raiden. Hiraishin no Jintai. Lightning style. Human lightning rod. Lightning stuck Sasuke, but he was prepared for the attack and used Chidori to absorb the lightning, while the hawk was electrocuted, sending the flying animal back to its summoned plane. On the descent down, Sasuke grabbed Kusanagi with his Chidori in hand and the weapon became charged with lightning. Chidori Nagashi. The Uchiha yelled. The ghost nin blocked the attack by infusing intense winds and fires into his long katana and yelled, "Amaterasu Saukai." Shining heaven sky, the Yurei's weapon was engulfed in white flames and he clashed with Sasuke's attack. An explosion ensued and the blonde-haired man landed safely, only to block Yugo's spiked arm from hitting himself. Sasuke came for the kill and the Yurei's katana split vertically in half as another sword which allowed the blonde fighter to block Sasuke's slash to the waist. Sasuke and Yugo were surprised. They had him. Shira pushed them away, connected his swords back tighter, caught his breath, and got into his stance, Mitsurugi's stance from Soul Calibur 3. "I wonder how Amaterasu-chan is doing." Suigetsu blocked the initial strike but was amazed by the wolf's strength. The wolf with fierceness that he had only seen in Shira. "So you know how to fight with a Zanbatsu, huh?" the water shinobi asked, getting a little excited. Amaterasu smirked and a golden sword flashed under her Zanbatsu. Where the crossguard should be was instead sharp spikes facing away from the handle. In the middle of the spikes was a peculiar feature. A white storm cloud floated inside angrily, forcing electricity into the large weapon. The holy canine decided to grace the ninja with an answer. "Nah. Just two." Her feminine voice rang through the clearing and she attacked him once again. Snapping out of his shock that he was fighting a talking female wolf, he blocked her first strike and flipped over her second strike, doing hand signs in the process. "Suiton. Daibakufu." Suigetsu shouted as he finished his hand seals and a great waterfall rushed towards the disguised celestial goddess. Amaterasu had other plans though. She ran full speed towards the waterfall and jumped to run on top of it. Suigetsu felt mocked, so he threw waves upon waves at her. Amaterasu jumped and curled herself and spun in a buzzsaw motion with her swords protruding out to slice the water. Harem bepies the wolf in her chakra. "It's so pure. Almost as if it was a deity." The red-haired woman thought. The wolf looked at her for a split second before running so fast at Suigetsu that her after-image had after-images. She bombarded the water wielder and in response, he liquefied himself only to feel lightning electrocuting him into unconsciousness. "My sword isn't called Thunderstrike for nothing," Amaterasu said lightly before bringing her attention to the sensor ninja. Karen looked at her fearfully. The sun goddess shook her head before fading away from Karen's vision. Before spectacled woman realized she was unconscious from a blow to the head from the wolf's paw. Amaterasu sighed in disappointment. "It seems this battle is over," she said in dismay. Personally, she enjoyed a challenging fight, but her fight didn't last as long as she hoped it would. The celestial being looked at Naruto and his battle before she smiled. "Don't get too hurt Naruto-kun. I want a real challenge when this is over." And with that, she vanished back into his mindscape. Shira chuckled as he felt Amaterasu return to his seal. "They couldn't keep up with you?" the Jinchuriki asked the holy entity as he dodged Yugo's arms. "No, sadly they couldn't. Their skills were not even close to a warm-up," the sun goddess said as she folded her arms and leaned against a pillar in the seal inside the golden-haired man. She smiled as she looked at the sky once more. "Make sure you're ready for tonight. We are fighting later to compensate from that subpar battle you wanted me to fight in," the white-haired woman quipped happily. "Huh?" Caught off guard with her statement, Shira overextended his swing and recovered in time to move his arm out of the way of Sasuke's Kusanagi, but Yugo landed a direct hit in Naruto's masked face. Sasuke then went through hand signs and shouted, "Kaiten. Takaku no Justu." The swordsman sliced through the attack but was slashed a few times by Yugo and Sasuke Kinjustu to Justu combination attacks before being shoved though 5 trees and slammed into some boulders. "Okami, Naruto-kun, I apologize." Amaterasu spoke, not knowing that her statement would have thrown the QP's host off guard. The Ninetales herself gave an amused smile, finding the whole situation entertaining. Naruto just waved it off. "Ma, it's okay Arasu-chan. You just surprised me." He ended with a grin. QB just shook her head at their antics. The wolf-masked man pushed himself out of the rumble and dusted himself off, taunting the conscious pair of Team Taka with that action. Sasuke looked at Shira with pure hate in his eyes. The Yurei saw it and thought it was time to get into the Uchiha's head. Kakashi looked at the fighters in wonderment. This battle is becoming something fierce. Everyone agreed. Jiraiya, on the other hand, was trying to figure out what happened between the two. He already knew that the young Sharingan user was a part of the Akatsuki. In fact, that was why he was here, to relay that information to Tsunade. Well, she knows now, the perverted Sannin thought with a sweat drop. Sasuke stared hard at the man in front of him. Why? The dark-haired man asked, catching both Yugo and the Yurei's attention. Why do you continue to fight? What's your motivation? Shira chuckled. Who I fight for is all I have. The golden-haired man replied with a passionate voice. The Yurei's killer intent started to rise. I've heard of your recent success in killing Itachi. Do you feel accomplished? Or do you feel hollower than ever? At this, the Uchiha felt his anger rising. Are you gonna try to revive your clan or kill all those involved in the Uchiha massacre? At this, the Sharingan descendant became enraged. My real question to you, Sasuke, is this. Are you going to finally look towards the light of redemption and a second chance, or drown in your own darkness of misery and hate? Sasuke fumed at the swordsman, appalled. You dare question me as if I'm a child? You know nothing. He screamed. You don't know what it's like to lose everything within a single night. You don't know what the pain of being alone. Shut up. Shira interrupted abruptly, with his killer intent spiking tremendously. All of those chances you could have taken to open up and be with someone. To have another family. I know you cannot replace family, but you could have had new bonds. All of Konoha would have gladly taken you in. The Yurei said intensely as his killer intent continued to rise rapidly. And you mean to tell me that you could not find one family that you could have given a shot? You had a choice of being alone after your family was killed. I did not. So get over yourself, because the world doesn't revolve around you. Now, Juugo, Sasuke, the now awoken Karen and Suigetsu, and the Konoha shinobi were officially afraid of the Phantom Warrior. Shira charged at the rejoined Team Taka with rage, eyes glowing through his mask. And his eyes were blazing crimson. Naruto. Calm down. QB yelled, trying her best to console her host and stop the chakra feed he held. Naruto. Using our powers at the same time is dangerous. Please. Let your anger go. Amaterasu pleaded. Naruto was now going for vitals, as he has already gave a crushing blow to Juugo with a well-placed Senpuu Kiri in the stomach. The orange-haired shinobi was immediately knocked out of his curse-seal state and badly bleeding, but still conscious and alive. Suigetsu slashed and grazed his mask on the left side, while Karen drop-kicked him in the face. The masked man rolled with the flow, grabbed her ankles and ruthlessly slammed her into the ground, and used her to club her water-affiliated teammate in the head, nearly sending the both of them unconscious. Sasuke's eyes strained to keep up with the Yurei's attacks, as he kept switching from his tangible form to his spirit-like state. Everywhere his red Tomod eyes looked, the ghost nin was intangible, and he would only catch after images. The Uchiha had taken a mean left hook, slash on his back, and a roundhouse kick to his jaw. When he tried to dodge a sword swipe, Shira phased out only to phase inside Sasuke's guard. Fueton. Kamikaze. Wind style. Divine wind, the Yurei yelled at point-blank range. Sasuke used Kawarimi no Jutsu, but didn't go far enough and felt a quarter of the wind jutsu's power. The Sharingan user rushed to regain his bearings, despite the fact that he was now sporting multiple cuts. Sasuke looked up with wide eyes to see his opponent coming down with his sword, meaning to cleave him in half. The Uchiha rolled himself out of the way desperately. Manjikyu Sharingan. Sasuke whispered gruffly as his eyes changed into a six-pointed star in both eyes and illuminated a bright red, like a cold fire brimming with rage. The swordsman stopped and beepized him for a moment and looked into his eyes. The QB Jinchuriki released his hold of his tenant's chakra, feeling his body beginning to ache from the withdrawal. I apologize for rudely using your powers at the same time, Rasu and Kaiu. The golden-haired man's eyes began to shine in regret as he felt blood enter his mouth and seep past his lips behind his mask. Please forgive me. Naruto thought, to the silent fox and wolf. The Nine-Tails began to heal his internal wounds, glad that her host came to his senses. The Sun Mistress gave a calm smile to the blonde man, not that he could see. She was upset at him for doing such a thing, but she never stay mad with him. Just don't do that again. You know how your body reacts to our chakra to your system all at once. The foxy woman said softly, pardoning her jailer. The nine-tailed container inwardly nodded before he closed his eyes, summoning his own chakra within himself. Now that Sasuke was using his trump card, the Jinchuriki wanted to see how he compared with his own power. Naruto's eyes opened, glowing a dark blue, like a raging whirlwind. Everyone who was watching the battle were astonished. They all knew Sasuke's story, but the Yurei sounded alone from the start. And the power both possessed was unreal. Jiraiya knew what he felt as Shira's killer intent rose. Most of that was him, but a little bit of it leaked something that he could never forget. That small part was the killer intent of the Ninetales. But there is only one person who carried that. Naruto Jiraiya thought with a mixture of remorse and joy. Remorse because of all that rage built up inside of him over the years of being mistreated, and joy because for years he couldn't find his godson. He looked at Tsunade and she looked back at him expectantly. His eyes widened. She knew. Kakashi grew stiff as he felt the familiar killer intent. Was that the Ninetales' killer intent? The copy nin looked at the black masked man. His eyes widened in a realization. That would mean that the Shirayure is Naruto. The hot Aki finished. Those shinobi that knew what the Ninetales' killer intent felt like were coming to the same conclusion as Jiraiya and Kakashi. Kurenai looked on in wonder as she too knew felt the familiar rage. But who she felt sad for was the phantom shinobi. Most of that rage was him. Her thoughts went back to how he acted earlier with her, Hinata, and Mika from the time that they met to the time that he left. Remembering the loneliness in his voice that he tried to hide, she felt another wave of sadness for the swordsman. She looked at Hinata and saw her with her Byakugan activated, her eyes shining in compassion for the swordsman. The Jinjutsu mistress looked past her former pupil to see Mika's green eyes staring at the Yurei's figure with a determined stare. Last, the red-eyed woman looked at her best friend Anko, who was gazing at the blonde-haired man with an emotionless stare. Kurenai put a slender hand on the serpent mistress's shoulder to try and comfort her. Anko gave half a smile in gratitude. The purple-haired Anbu looked at the wolf-masked man in sorrow. For you to go through so much and bear it without telling anyone. The violet-haired woman saw his eyes glow angrily. Naruto-kun. Both fighters stared at one another with intensity. Sasuke decided to attack. Amaterasu. The Uchiha yelled. Black flames roared to life where the Yurei was standing. The swordsman poofed from existence. Team Taka's leader looked left, right, behind, up, and below. Oten. Shinju's Anshu no Jutsu. Earth style. Inner decapitation technique, hands reached for Sasuke's ankles, but the Uchiha jumped and flipped for a heel kick. The blonde-haired man blocked him and threw him farther into the air. Multiple slashes were being given between the two shinobi, blocking and parrying each other. Both landed on the ground. The Dark Avenger had enough of this. Sasuke charged his Amaterasu into his Chidori. The energies illuminated into a black and purple lightning ball. Take this. Chidori no Yami. 1,000 birds of darkness. Shira looked at the oncoming attack in alarm. Good thing I've practiced this, the swordsman thought. The Yurei first created Senpuu Kiri in his left hand and created Goraikou in his right hand before fusing both attacks together into one, causing the chakra ball to glow white with an orange tinge. Youkai Goraikou. Heaven's rising sun. Both attacks collided and a harder power struggle began. Sasuke was using everything he had. Naruto pushed as hard as he could. Finally, the two opposing forces exploded, lighting up the clearing. The Konoha nins moved in to get a closer look. Yugao had a worried look behind her mask. Please be okay, she whispered to herself. Kurenai, Hinata, Mika, and Anko never spoke, but they also had a worried look. Jiraiya, Tsunade, and Shizune contained their emotions to the best of their ability. The rest of the shinobi looked on in apprehension. The lighting dimmed and the dust cleared to show a majorly wounded Sasuke, struggling to get up after going into the ground by the sheer force of the power struggle. Sasuke-kun, Karen said as walked up to him and gently tried to pick him up. Sujetsu and Jugo helped her to get him up. Bite my arm. The raven-haired missing nin looked at her, remembering her heel bite technique. Karen, are you sure you can afford that? The bloody Sharingan user asked. His arms felt fried and numb, and he refused to take something from someone if it was their last. I have chakra to spare. Now bite. She replied. The Uchiha just did as he was told, bit her arm, feeling chakra flowing into his system. On the other side, Shira pushed himself out of the rubble he was in. His left arm was bloody, his cloak was tattered and destroyed on the left side, showing a black scar from the bottom of his shoulder blade going vertically across, ending nearly at the bottom of his chest muscle. The Yurei walked towards Team Taka, noticing the looks of disbelief on their faces. He looked at the group and smiled beneath his mask. You all may be the beginning to Sasuke's road of healing. Karen, Jugo, and Sujetsu looked at him. You all have accepted each other. Sasuke, if nothing else, will you open up to them? Sasuke stood up, having a bit of his chakra returned to him. The Uchiha gazed at the man in front of him with great intensity. The Yurei simply stared back. Why are you so insistent on that? The Sharingan heir asked. The Yurei looked into the raven-haired man's eyes and showed the depth of his rage and loneliness. I understand. For the first time in a long time, Sasuke truly began to consider the repercussions of the path he was on. The way he stared at him as if looking into his soul unnerved him. Shira slightly moved his head up at the sound of his mask cracking apart. The mask continued to break apart until it crumbled from the man's face. The pieces landed on the ground to reveal a pair of azure eyes, unruly golden hair, and 3 pronounced whisker marks on each cheek. Everyone became speechless when they recognized the figure before them. Naruto. Sasuke whispered. Just a few moments ago, he admitted to himself that he was afraid of Shirayuri. Also known as Uzumaki Naruto. Sasuke's eyes narrowed in anger. Naruto stared at him with his eyes giving the dark blue glow again. We will meet again, Naruto. Team Taka shooshined themselves away from the clearing. Naruto looked down on his broken mask and sighed. It seems I never could get a break. He said and looked at the group of shinobi next to them. He recognized most of them. Different emotions flashed across the group's faces. Naruto-kun, the golden-haired ninja, looked to his left to see the Nico Anbu walk towards him. Naruto became nervous. He wasn't sure how this was going to turn out, whether they would be upset with him for leaving without saying goodbye, or if they would accept him. Yuigao stared at the shinobi before her, watching all out the swirling emotions within his eyes. The kunoichi embraced him suddenly, halting the Kyuubi Jinchuriki's thoughts. Naruto's heart quickened from the gesture before he felt consoled as he wrapped his arms around the cat-masked woman, closing his eyes as he leaned his head on top of hers. Hinata joined the hug, and then Anko, then Kurenai. One by one, the ninjas joined the group hug. Naruto felt so overwhelmed, his eyes watered up from raw emotion. Naruto became ghost-like and moved outside of the group, wiping away the tears that threatened to spill from his eyes. Thanks for the hugs. The blonde shinobi said, grinning in embarrassment. Ivane looked at him and smiled, chuckling to themselves. Before they could bombard the ghost ninja with questions, he raised his hand in a stopping manner. I'll answer your questions another time. I would like to have the rest of the day to myself. Everyone looked at him incredulously, but understood. Thanks. I greatly appreciate it. The swordsman shinobi said with a tired look. Now if you will excuse me, I'll be looking for a hotel. Naruto turned away, but Tsunade stopped him. You could stay at the Anbu living quarters. The Yondaime lookalike looked at her. What's the catch? Everyone chuckled. Since you gave me the best sake in the world, no catch. Naruto chuckled. One of the bottles was a mixture to bring one's youth back. It's obvious which one you took. He said as he pulled out his sword and showed Tsunade her reflection off of the blade part of his weapon. The blonde woman looked and jerked back in surprise. So how much did you drink? Naruto asked. The female fire shadow mumbled. I'm sorry, what was that? The ghost nin teased. She looked at him with a blush on her face. I said I drank half of it. Naruto looked at her and blinked. Well, you should be around Yuhi-chan's age. Naruto replied as he shot the Genjutsu mistress a look. She blushed rosily as she looked away from him. Asuma saw the Genjutsu user's reaction as his eyes slightly narrowed. Tsunade-chan, could you do me a favor? The Hokage lightly blushed from the suffix the golden-haired man used before she looked at him. Sure, what is it? The female Hokage replied. Give the rest of the mixture to Jiraiya. Naruto said with a smile. The spiky-haired sage looked at his godson in surprise. Consider it as thanks for just being there for me. The Jinchuriki replied, seeing the look on his face. But you still owe me. The author of Icha Paradise fell in I'm style. Come on Naruto. How was I supposed to know that Conan was helping you? Jiraiya whined. Because I gave you a note that said she was, remember? Naruto said annoyed. You had to go so far in your sage mode, and even then you almost gotten yourself killed. If it wasn't for me showing up when I did, you would have died. Naruto spoke in a serious tone, displeased that his former sensei almost had his life ended from his decision. The Toad Sannin hung his head in shame. Jiraiya knew he had a point. But you're not dead. The blonde-haired man gave a heartwarming smile, which made the kunoichi around them redden in their cheeks, ever so slightly. Oh, before I forget, Kona-chan wanted me to give you this. Naruto dug into his pocket and gave a scroll to his old master. Jiraiya took the small paper and read it. So I've gained another person for my spy network. The perverted ninja thought. Thanks Naruto. Okay then. When we get back into my office, I'll give the mixture to him. Tsunade said, entering the conversation once again. Naruto smiled and nodded. Well, here's the key. It's for your room. Come by the tower tomorrow morning. The blonde-haired woman said, pulling the key from her pocket. Naruto gratefully took the key from her and hugged her, making the Hokage blush. He looked at the group and waved his goodbyes as he walked towards the village. He could go for some ramen right now. After letting QB tend to his wounds and changing his tattered wardrobe, he made his way to Ichiraku Ramen. The village looked at him with different emotions. Sure, the hate was still there, but there was also a considerable amount of respect, admiration, and a familiar gaze that some of the women gave. He just couldn't decipher it. Being looked at like this made it uncomfortable and he didn't have a spare mask at all. Stupid Team Taka, breaking my favorite mask. That lasted for 2 whole years. And it was a gift to Naruto sighed in dismay. Well, I'll try to get another one later. He decided as he made his destination, moving a flap away as he entered the restaurant. Hey Aja-san. Naruto said softly as he sat on a stool. Tucci stopped from doing his work and looked back at the whiskered marked man and gasped. "Naruto?" he asked with a shaken voice. The ghost nin smiled and jumped over the counter and gave the ramen owner a hug. "Yeah, it's me Tucci Ojisan." The older man hugged back tightly, elated that his favorite customer was back. Tucci pulled back and had a big smile on his face. "So what will it be?" The Uzumaki looked at him with a genuine smile as he raised his hand high. "3 miso ramen please." AM walked in through the back door. "Hey dad." She called with a smile. Tucci just smiled at his daughter. The waitress looked past her father and saw a man in a crescent cloak with a mop of golden hair, pronounced whisker marks, and deep blue eyes looking back at her with a smile. Hey AM-chan," Naruto said nervously. Recognizing their favorite customer, smiled beautifully and embraced him. "I missed you Naruto-kun," she said softly. The QB's host hugged her back, touched from her words. "I missed you too AM-chan." Tucci smiled at the scene and went in the back to grab more ingredients. AM released the blonde shinobi before looking at Naruto up and down with a sharp gaze. "You're taller than me now," she said as she held a hand to her lips as she giggled, grabbing utensils to help her father in making Naruto's order. The golden-haired ninja blushed in embarrassment. "Ma, I guess I am." Naruto watched the brunette and noticed something about her. The way she moved, how swiftly she did her tasks, and the efficiency of her tasks. Her posture and mannerisms were that of a ninja. Deciding he wouldn't say anything about it, he jumped back over the counter and sat back into the stool. "Okay. First bowl of miso ramen is ready," Tucci shouted as he passed his bowl to Naruto. "How long has it been since I've had one of these?" The blonde swordsman wondered before eating and savoring its marvelous flavor. On his last bowl, 3 other men walked in and waited to order their bowls. "Hello, welcome to the Goraikou, what would you like?" AM asked with a friendly smile. "How's about you, sweet thing?" The first man said smugly while the other 2 men snickered. The ramen waitress looked at the man that tried to flirt with her and shook her head. "I'm sorry sir, but I'm interested in someone." "Now, would you like to order some ramen?" she asked again, her smile being forced this time. Naruto looked at the situation in silence and beepized the men. "I don't like where this is going." The blonde thought flatly. "Oh, and who would that be?" "This guy here." The second man pointed at the phantom shinobi. The third man said, "Looks like a wimp to me." The Ninetales jailer finished his bowl. The first man looked at Naruto. "Hey, you look familiar." Naruto stood up. "Here, AM-chan. Keep the change." The Ninetales host said as he placed money on the counter. "I remember now. You're the demon that was banished." The azure-eyed man was silent as he gazed upon the 3 men in front of him. "Tell me." Naruto started. "If you poured ramen into a bowl, does it make the bowl itself ramen?" The third man chuckled. "Of course it doesn't. The bowl is still a bowl." "Then why am I any different?" Naruto asked. Everyone went quiet after that. The Uzumaki walked to leave when he stopped. "And if you idiots don't leave Aya-chan and Ajisan alone, I'll show you the difference between me and QB personally. Understand?" The men nodded their heads slowly and apologized to the waitress and chef, leaving the stand with a brisk walk. Naruto looked on before leaving silently. He needed to get to the Anbu living quarters for his room. Naruto finally made it to the Anbu living quarters. He already had his key, so he started to look for the apartment he would be staying at. He saw a different Anbu look at him and acknowledge him. Naruto returned the gesture. Some of them had their masks on while others had it off. Room S15. "Well, this is the place." Naruto used the key to open the door and entered it. He smiled at the simplicity of the room. He closed the door and looked around. When he was finished touring the apartment, he looked through the window. The sun was almost completely out of sight. "I haven't been to the Hokage monument in a while." He left the room via Shushin to the monument. The fox's container stood on the third's head and looked at the village. "Naruto-kun, are you alright?" QP asked in concern. "I'm fine Kaiu-chan. I'm just a little tired," her host replied. The ghost nin squeezed his hand until it was bleeding and began to do half seals. The swordsman placed his hand on the ground and said gently, "Kuchius. QP no Kitsune." The guardian was poofed into existence. It was random how he thought to apply the summoning technique to the 9-tailed vixen. When Amaterasu gave him a contract for wolves it just came to him. Strange. QB sat next to him in her fox form with only one tail swishing around slowly. Amaterasu flashed next to her in her wolf form. "The full moon is out tonight," said the holy canine. Naruto smiled slightly. "It still can't beat sunrises," QB commented. Both of them agreed. QB stood up and got onto Naruto's lap before she curled herself and laid down. Naruto raised an eyebrow, amusement by the little vixen. "You're warm," the guardian said with a smile. The blonde gave a small quiet laugh to himself as he started petting her. The red fox purred in content. Naruto reached for the sun goddess before pulling her close to him. The white wolf looked at him with a light blush as he began to scratch behind her ear. He did not say anything, just smiled as he closed his eyes. Amaterasu looked away with a smile and continued to look at the moon, enjoying the ministrations on her fur-covered head. Her smile grew as a thought ran by her. "Hey, Naru-kun." The blonde ninja looked at her. "You still owe me a fight. Are you ready?" Naruto's eyes widened and looked at her. That sounds like a good idea, Ami. Maybe we could double team him. I missed out on most of the action today anyway." Naruto quickly looked at the kitsune on his lap. "Trust me, it wasn't any exercise to begin with. But your idea will certainly make things more interesting." Naruto looked at the two animals. "If I summoned you QB, that would have been a blaring hint as to who I was, even if in the end they know now. And we can't fight out here. It'll alert the village and you both know that." Both of the higher beings switched into their human forms. QB still sat on his lap with a sexy smile for her host, and Amaterasu leaned in on his chest with hers, giving a sensual grin. Naruto flushed from the two women. They were teasing him again. "Who says we're fighting out here?" QB and Amaterasu grinned excitedly. At this point, Naruto knew. This was going to be a long night. Naruto woke up with a hazed mind at 5:30 a.m. No matter what he did, he would always wake up around this time. The whiskered man moved to get up, only to find a fox and a wolf curled up sleeping peacefully at his right side. Naruto smiled and touched both of their furs, which didn't disturb their sleep. Naruto stopped and gazed at the both of them with a melancholy stare. QB and Amaterasu both probably have someone waiting for them back at their homes. Why would either one of them be interested in me? Naruto thought sadly. Though the depressing thoughts invaded his mind, it never changed the fact that he wanted to free QB from the seal. He was almost done finding a way to free her, but the seal he was missing a few key components for her true freedom. "I'm almost there, QB." Naruto got up from the bed, grabbed his clothes and other necessities for his morning ritual, and went to the bathroom to take a shower. After finishing up in the bathroom, the golden-haired man made breakfast for himself and the still sleeping fox and wolf. He took one last look at them and smiled. "Thanks for being there for me," he whispered. The shinobi vanished, heading for the Hokage monument. Naruto sat on the Yondaime's head, enjoying the sunrise. The warmth the star provided in the mornings always calmed him. The sight of seeing the sun lighting the sky slowly before it shines in all of its glory energized him. Interesting enough, this was what inspired him create the jutsu, Goraikou, Rising Sun, a Rasengan filled with fire, lightning, and wind. "So you were gonna watch the sunrise without us?" Amaterasu asked while she and QB walked up behind him in their human form. "Well, both of you look so peaceful sleeping, I didn't have the heart to wake you up," sheepishly replied the blonde Jinchuriki. Amaterasu smiled softly, finding his consideration rather endearing. QB looked her host in a tender manner before she grinned. "I see you are recovering nicely from last night's little battle." Naruto looked at the vixen, eyebrow twitching. Mindscape or not, his body was killing him. Their expectations of him in a battle were absolutely absurd, he believed. He was only a Jinchuriki, and somehow, the two expected him to be challenging for Kami's sake. He was double-teamed by a guardian and a goddess. Even with his fiery spirit, he did not have a snowball's chance in hell. All in all, he got outright abused by the two. The ghost user turned away from the blood-haired woman, looking back at the landscape before him. "Well, you know I aim to please," he answered softly, not desiring to entertain the Kitsune guardian for a verbal exchange. The vixen gave a small pout, but smiled in resignation as she understood that her blonde host wasn't in the mood. "So, how are the both of you this morning?" the swordsman asked genuinely. Both women sat next to him on both sides. "We're fine, thank you for asking," the foxy woman said in content. Both of them leaned on him, and Naruto wrapped his arms around their slender waists. QB glanced at Naruto, her cheeks becoming a pinkish hue. As long as she had lived, she had never experienced these feelings. Around her host, she was allowed to let her guard down and just be herself, something that she had not allowed herself to do, even if she was by herself. She was completely accepted by him as she felt at peace, loved around him, and strangely enough, even protected. Naruto was powerful. Not stronger than her, mind you, but powerful nonetheless. She could even say that he was attractive to her. He treated her and Amaterasu as equals and looked beyond their beauty, getting to know them on a very personal level. No one has ever gotten that close to her. An authentic smile rested on QB's visage as she nestled into him. Amaterasu had similar thoughts as she watched the sun peek over the horizon. The white-haired woman gazed at the blonde container for a brief moment. He didn't see her as Mother Amaterasu, the one who defeated Yami, but just Amaterasu, or his christened name for her, Rasu-chan. She enjoyed the nickname, not that she would admit to Naruto. It gave her an identity for how she truly was when she was being herself. A part of the goddess loved the fact that it was a name that was personally made for her. No one else, just her. Although he didn't know it, Naruto was closer to her than anyone she knew. Isen, Kebagami, Gekigami, and Waka were close, but when would she actually see them again? Of course Kyuubi was her best friend, but their friendship was different compared to hers and Naruto. She felt content, at ease, guarded, and cherished with the Jinchuriki. Of course she was stronger than him, but he still somehow made her feel shielded, stopping anything that would try to harm her. The shinobi was attractive to her as well. She smiled genuinely before relaxing further into his chest. Naruto's expression was soft, feeling the two women relax more into his embrace. He looked down at the two women who gazed forward at the dawn with a tender glaze in their eyes. "What's on your minds?" Naruto asked them in concern. Amaterasu and Kyuubi turned their attention to him. "Nothing much. Just you." The orange-eyed woman smiled softly. Naruto looked Amaterasu in the eyes, finding truth in their depths. Slowly but surely, a blush was creeping onto his face. She isn't lying, the human sacrifice thought. His gaze switched from the sun goddess to the fox guardian, finding her smiling at him in a tender manner. His blush increased. Naruto finally stood, helping his companions up. The two embraced him gingerly afterwards, making the ghost shinobi gaze upon their forms quietly. Normally, that would have made him think they were up to something, but the look in their eyes told him otherwise. Not the one to reject a hug, he returned the gesture with compassion. "What's wrong?" Naruto asked. They released him and looked the swordsman. "Nothing. But don't forget to go to the Hokage's office this morning," the guardian replied. Naruto's eyes widened, smiling as he scratched the back of his head sheepishly. "That completely slipped my mind," Amaterasu giggled along with Kyuubi. "We know," the celestial being replied. "Well, thanks for the heads up," Naruto said with his patented foxy grin. Kyuubi just smiled and waved it off. "Consider it as thanks for making us something to eat this morning, Naru-kun." And after that, she dispelled herself back into the seal. The wolf woman nodded in agreement. "The breakfast was very good. And thanks again for the fight. It was enjoyable. Next time should be better." Amaterasu chirped happily before entering the seal in a flash. Naruto held a withdrawn expression as he looked to the sky once more. Amaterasu Kyuubi Naruto spoke to himself before he finally made his way towards the Hokage tower. "Maybe I do have a chance." Seal. The higher beings reappeared back into the seal, soft expressions on their feminine features. "I think he's finally letting his guard down," the fox guardian said quietly. "True, but he's still hesitant. But we're getting through," the celestial being replied with a warm smile. When Amaterasu decided to stay with Naruto, Kyuubi told her everything that happened to him. After hearing it all, the holy being and the guardian wanted to do everything in their power to aid him. During the last few years, both beings saw how alone Naruto was and both agreed on helping him by being there for him when he needed it. But as time passed, they began to have feelings for him. Though unspoken, both were content on sharing him. Kyuubi sighed. "But why is he restraining himself?" she asked, her spirits dampened. Amaterasu, seeing her best friend down, said, "Well, at least we're making progress. I don't think it will be too long until he fully relaxes himself around us." Kyuubi smiled as she closed her eyes, encouraged from the thought. Naruto stood at the front of the Hokage tower nervously. Now that Konoha knew he was in the village, it would be only a matter of time before the council. "Uzumaki Naruto. You are hereby under arrest for trespassing." Sends for his arrest. Naruto sighed in irritation before looking at the Anbu squad in front of him. "I have a meeting with Hokage-sama. I cannot afford to miss this," the maskless Jinchuriki said. "I'm sorry Naruto-san," the tiger mask Anbu started. "But you have to come with us, whether you want to or not." Naruto recognized that voice. It was the other Anbu that was with Nico when they escorted him to Tsunade's office yesterday morning. "Alright. I'll come with you as long as you don't bind me." The squad leader agreed and formed a circle around the crimson-cloaked man. Naruto smiled lightly as the group began to walk towards the council chambers inside the tower. The whisker-cheeked man looked at the 5 elite ninja that surrounded him, each with an animal mask. Tora, Nico, Inu, Shishi, and Taka, tiger, cat, dog, lion, and hawk. He figured he could try and figure out their identities to pass the time. He recognized Tora and Nico from yesterday but didn't know the rest. Naruto began to sniff their scent. Tora-san smells of water and wood, and Nico-chan smells of jasmine and moonflowers with a hint of metal. Interesting, Naruto thought before silently sniffing again. Inu-san smells like vanilla and dogs. Naruto took another sniff. Shishi-san smells like metal, and Taka-san smells like ramen. Naruto finished his thought confused but never showed it on his face. He thought back to last night when he saw Tucci and Am. If that's the case, then what I saw with Am's movements were correct. But I never would have thought Anbu though. Maybe Takubetsu Jounin, but not Anbu. Naruto grinned. The Anbu saw his grin and tensed up a bit. "Relax." Naruto spoke in a calm voice. "When I give my word, I see it through." Tora saw the glint in the man's dark blue eyes. "What are you up to, Naruto?" The brown-haired man wondered warily. He only saw that glint once before in the man's eyes when he was younger. It usually meant that he had a plan or someone was about to get embarrassed. Sometimes both. "So Nico-chan," Naruto started. Youkai felt heat lightly enter her cheeks, shaking her embarrassment off as she turned her attention to him. "What did you do with the moonflower I gave you?" Now everyone was interested. When did this happen? The Anbu paid more attention to the conversation. The violet-haired woman looked at the swordsman. "I still have it if that's what you're asking." Naruto smiled and nodded. The purple-haired woman was curious though. "What was your reason for giving it to me?" The former village pariah looked at her and gave a smile that made her, Taka, and Inu almost melt right then. "Because moonflowers are rare." He replied in a reserved tone. "That, and it's also my way of telling you that I haven't forgotten you." At this, he grinned. Youkai felt heat slowly come on her cheeks. All of this time, he hadn't forgotten her. And his compliment. Moonflowers are rare because they only grow once a year and start blooming in the evening time and comes into full bloom at night. But in this case he was saying. He liked her in terms of skill, beauty, and personality. The Nanbu, her skills flourish in the shadows of night. The moonflower itself is a beautiful, delicate flower, but has strong vines, like her physically. And during the night is the time where she usually can be herself. Like the night that they met. Naruto looked away from her with a knowing smile. "I'm glad to see that you are still perceptive as ever." He replied, slightly blushing himself. Inu and Taka also understood what he meant, finding themselves at a loss for words. They were jealous that they didn't have someone that was as romantic as that. Suddenly, a growl was heard and the squad looked at their captive. Naruto flushed embarrassingly. "I guess I didn't make enough breakfast this morning." He gave an innocent thinking pose, but if one looked closely, you could see the mischief in his eyes. "I hope Aja-san and Aya-chan are open when this is over." Taka's eyes widened. "He called me Aya-chan last night when those guys came in the ramen bar too." She blushed and turned her head slightly to the right and her hands moved a little closer to her lap. This subtle action didn't escape Naruto. "So I was right," the QP host thought slyly. The blonde turned to face dog-masked personnel. Inu stared back nervously, not that you could tell. The fox container continued to stare at the dog-masked woman before she decided to ask, "Is there any reason why you're staring at me?" Naruto grinned foxily before replying, "Because I think you're pretty." Inu tilted her head questioningly. "You don't even know what I look like." The elite ninja replied, eye twitching. The swordsman chuckled. "Sure I do. You were the beautiful flower that came to cure Dog Boy's partner." At this, Inu's eyes widened as she felt her face heat up. "I can't believe he remembered that. And he thinks I'm beautiful." The brown-haired woman thought as her blush increased. Naruto thought to himself, 3 down, 2 to go, but before he could start on his next victim, the Shishi Anbu announced, "We're here." The Jinchuriki sighed quietly. "Thanks for the escort. It was fun while it lasted." The golden-haired man said before his playful side was set away before his serious side returned to face the council. The Anbu noticed his change in attitude and slightly shivered. "Well, this is gonna be interesting to say the least," were the collective thoughts of the Anbu. They opened the doors and entered the council room with Tsunade at the head of the table. The female fire shadow gave an apologetic glance to Naruto, which was responded with a small smile. Most of the civilian side and a few of the shinobi side sneered at the side of the man in question, while the most of the shinobi side, which consisted of clan heads, looked on in sympathy. "Well, Uzumaki, do you not know the meaning of banishment?" Danzo started off in the meeting. Naruto just chuckled, making the old warhawk narrow his eye at him. Shikaku looked at Naruto. "I know you didn't come here only to be discovered, Uzumaki-san." Naruto looked at the Nara clan head. "Please, just Naruto will be fine. As for coming here, it was not my intention to be exposed. I simply came to collect my bounty, send a message to Tsunade-sama, and be on my way." "And what might that message be?" questioned Kaharu. "Something that was told to me," Tsunade said with authority. "This man gave vital information to us about Orochimaru and the Akatsuki, along with giving us a new alliance with Kurigakure." The council was shaken by the news. Everyone looked at the crimson-cloaked man. "Why?" started Tsum. "Why do you continue to help us? I know that if it was me, I wouldn't even think about the village. Maybe my clan, but not the village." The Inyazuka clan head finished with a withdrawn expression. The rest of the clan heads nodded in agreement. Everyone looked at Naruto for a response. The ninja swordsman looked at the council with a reserved smile. "The few people I do have in this village is what keeps me going." The blonde man began. "If I have to protect everyone in the village to ensure my few people's safety, then that's what I'll do." He finished. "But that still doesn't negate the fact that you are still here when you are banished," stated Hamura. The whiskered man laughed quietly. "You're right, it doesn't. I say we should execute him," a civilian councilman proposed. Tsunade looked at him. Too bad you aren't a ninja clan head, for this is a shinobi matter. The blonde-haired woman said calmly, deciding to block the civilians entirely. Naruto had an idea. Let me prove myself to you then. Everyone in the room looked at the human sacrifice curiously. The Hokage smiled, knowing how he could. Alright. Now everyone's attention was on the legendary medic. Earlier this week, I've been informed that all of the Kages will meet due to some arising threats that have begun to show up all around the elemental countries. Everyone nodded. All of us are bringing 2 of our ninjas for protection in case someone tries to attack us. What I'm proposing to all of you is Naruto goes with me as one of my nins. The reactions of the council varied. Most of the civilian side was in an uproar, while the few who weren't actually thought about the idea. Danzo, Hamura and Koharu were outraged while the clan heads thought and accepted the idea. How do you know that he will come through for us? Snarled Danzo. Hiashi, having enough of the crippled man, equally snarled back, he has proven his loyalty to us time and time again. Can you say the same? Silence reigned inside the chamber. Hiashi Hyuga, the most emotionless clan head they knew, actually showed emotion and anger at that, defended Naruto, and questioned Danzo's allegiance. Unheard of. I never had to question his loyalty for a moment, unlike you. The Hyuga stated coldly. Danzo stared back at the man in anger. Think of it this way, Danzo. What would the other Kages think if they see Shirayure as Konoha's ninja? Naruto said, trying to appeal to Danzo's warhawk nature. Everyone was surprised when Danzo closed his eyes calmly. It's not like I haven't thought of that. It's just that we gave you no reason for you to help us. I just want what's best for Konoha. He spoke before coming into a decision. I accept Hokage-sama's proposal. Danzo said begrudgingly. Everyone was floored. No one, absolutely no one has ever seen the old warhawk act the way he did. Tsunade chuckled before saying, accepting this just makes it easier for me. Either way, he was going whether you wanted him to go or not. The clan head snickered while Danzo stared impassively. Koharu, seeing that the debate was final, bitterly asked, so when are you supposed to leave? The granddaughter of the Shodai Hokage replied, the meeting starts in 3 days, but we're leaving tomorrow. She looked at everyone and asked, anything else? Everyone shook their heads. Tsunade said with finality, well then, meeting adjourned. Naruto smiled in relief. Everyone started walking out of the room when Naruto walked towards the clan heads and stopped them. Thank you for supporting me. Even though some of you didn't say anything, I saw that you were in agreement and for that I am grateful. The Jinchuriki thanked and bowed his head a little. Please, don't bow. If anything, we should be thanking you. Shibi said. Naruto looked at them and tilted his head in confusion. Nico, Inu, Taka, Swan and Tsume had to stop themselves from the kawaii reflex that all women seem to have. Inoichi saw this and chuckled. You have bettered our children in ways that you may not have known. That's why we are thanking you. Naruto's eyes light up in recognition and gave a brilliant smile. Glad to help. Naruto said happily. The clan head smiled. Tsume gazed at the QB host and Inu with a smirk. I hope Hana goes for you, Naruto. You're one of the few men I trust to take care of her. The Inyazuka mother thought to herself. Naruto. The said man turned to see Tsunade motioning for him to come with her. He nodded and looked back at the family leaders. Looks like I have to leave. Thanks again and have a good day. The swordsman smiled and left the group. Naruto followed Tsunade back to her office and sat on the chair in front of the Hokage desk. Tsunade followed in after finishing a silencing jutsu. Alright, since you will be coming with me and Tenzo to the Kage meeting, I need to know how strong you are. Tsunade said, getting down to business. The crimson-cloaked man went into his professional mode and stated, using just my abilities, I would say I could take on 3 Kages before getting stressed. The Hokage looked at Naruto in awe. Just how much training did he go through? When you were fighting Sasuke, it felt like you were at Sannin level. Tsunade exclaimed. Naruto smiled a bit. Did you ever wonder why I never went unconscious during that battle? Did it even seem like I had a lot of energy to spare? Tsunade thought about it and recalled Naruto and Jireya's quarrel. You even went to go get something to eat afterwards, like nothing happened, Tsunade said. I was wondering about that. This certainly explains some things. Another voice said. Naruto just shook his head while Tsunade's eyebrow twitched in irritation. Hey Iro Jireya. The said person face faulted while the female Sannin laughed at the name. Gaki. Why did you call me that? Jireya asked in anger. Naruto looked back at the man. Well, I do recall you telling me to stop calling you Iro Sennin. So I just gave the name a little adjustment. The Jinchuriki said with a grin. Tsunade at this point was clutching her sides from laughter. The Gamma Sennin just hung his head in defeat. Naruto shook his head and said, you just can't win for nothing, can you? The perverted man just sulked even more. Tsunade recomposed herself before remembering something. It's a good thing you're here though. Here. she said as she tossed a bottle to her old teammate. He caught it and looked at the red liquid. It's half empty. Jiraiya deadpanned. Naruto laughed a bit. That's Tsuna-chan for ya. Naruto said, making the perverted author laugh, and Tsunade reddened in her cheeks. So this is what made Tsunade younger physically? Jiraiya asked. The ninja swordsman gave him a thumbs up. Okay. Said the wild-haired man before opening the bottle and catching the fragrance of the bottle. Whoa. Okay Tsunade, what am I expecting here as far taste goes? Questioned Jiraiya with his mouth already watering up. The best sake in the world. Exclaimed Tsunade before saying, but don't drink it yet. The toad sage looked at her with the open bottle already tilted to his mouth. Why? He whined. Well, you'll fall out afterwards. Naruto said. Jiraiya sighed and put the cap back on the bottle. Alright Jiraiya. You know of the meeting of the Kages, right? Tsunade asked. The white-haired man nodded. Well I'm gone, I need you to be Hokage momentarily. The sage sighed. He knew this was coming. And as Naruto and Tsunade could tell, he did not want the responsibility. Hey sensei. Naruto said. Jiraiya looked at him. If you do this, you can call us even. At this, the man's eyes lit up a little bit. Alright. I'll do it. But please, hurry back. He said. Tsunade got up and stretched a bit. We'll try. I need to go and pack up my things. We are leaving at 8 AM sharp tomorrow. She announced. Naruto and Jiraiya nodded. Hey Jiraiya? Naruto asked, gaining his attention. You wanna know how to do paperwork faster? Both Sanins looked at Naruto. For Jiraiya, paperwork was the main reason that he didn't want to be a Hokage. For Tsunade, Naruto found a solution to the undefeatable problem. Tell me. The two legendary ninjas pleaded. Naruto chuckled and said, Kage Bushin passes the information back to you, right? Both of the ninjas looked at each other before looking at Naruto. Tsunade slowly walked to the golden-haired man before she hugged the golden-haired man. The embrace became tighter and tighter and tighter. She was so happy to know this information that she unconsciously used chakra in the hug. Tsunade. He's blue. Jiraiya exclaimed. The Hokage was still hugging him until she felt his warmth disappear. Where'd he go? She thought aloud. Both looked around and saw him fade back into existence again in front of them. You give a whole new meaning to Killjoy, Naruto whispered to himself while his face was regaining its original color. The Hokage blushed. She almost made him pass out again. Naruto smiled and reassured her. It's okay Tsunade-chan. Jiraiya smiled lecherously. Perfect material if you take out that pad, I'm destroying you. The slug princess deadpanned. The pervert quickly knocked his smile off and looked at the bottle in his hand. So, is that all? The blonde-haired woman nodded. Good. And with that said, Jiraiya chugged the bottle until every last drop was gone. The toad sage looked at the two blondes with a huge smile. Dom. He exclaimed and promptly passed out on the floor. Tsunade and Naruto laughed before calming down. Hey Tsunade-chan. The woman's face slightly turned pink. Yeah Naruto. Naruto hugged her, surprising her before she hugged him back. Thanks for everything. He said before letting go. Tsunade giggled and replied, I should say the same for you. Maybe we could go on a date as thanks to each other. Slowly heat came onto the whiskered man's cheeks. He looked at her and saw a small blush on her face. Think about it. She said before she left the room with a sway of her hips, causing the Jinchuriki to flush a bit more. Naruto left the tower with what Tsunade proposed on his mind. Maybe she was joking, but technically she is younger now, he thought to himself before shaking off his thoughts. He saw Nico outside of the building, sitting under a tree as she polished her katana. She said she wanted to talk earlier. I wonder what she wanted. The crimson-cloaked man thought as he made his way to the masked woman. Hey Nico-chan. The swordsman greeted. The masked Kunoichi looked up to see the crimson-cloaked man and stood up, placing her weapon in its sheath. Hey, Naruto-kun. She said. Naruto smiled, glad to see her again. Is there something you wanted to talk about? The golden-haired man asked. Yes, but before that, I wanted to give you something. Yuga started. Your mask was destroyed by the Uchiha and his group, and I figured you were going to try and replace it, so here. The purple-haired woman said before handing him a mask that looked like his old mask. It was a black wolf mask that had 3 jagged lines like the pronounced version of his whisker marks. Naruto gave her a dazzling smile which made the masked woman's heart skip a beat. Thank you. I don't know how to repay you, Naruto said, truly happy that he got his mask back. Do you want to get something to eat with me? Naruto offered. Yuga was taken aback. Was he asking her on a date? There was always something more with him, she thought, her expression soft. As the female Anbu was about to reply, her teammate came and gave her a scroll before leaving. She sighed in disappointment. I would love to, but it seems I have another mission to attend to. The dark blue-eyed man nodded in understanding. But how about after your trip with Tsunade-sama? Naruto looked up surprised in her efforts to make time for him. A genuine smile graced his features. "I would love that," he answered. "This makes me look forward to coming back much quicker," he said with some enthusiasm. The cat-masked woman giggled at his words and expression on his face. "Glad I'm someone you look forward to seeing." Naruto grinned. Nico gracefully moved closer to the fox container. The ghost shinobi wondered what she was doing, unable to read her while her face was covered. Youkai took off her mask, making his feet plant where he stood to take in her beauty. Long, smooth violet hair with two long tresses framing her beautiful face, free from any blemishes with her soft complexion. Sharp, light purple eyes with a cute nose along with soft full lips covered in red, enhancing her feminine visage. "Just as beautiful as the first time I saw you," the QB container thought tenderly. Youkai smiled genuinely with a small blush before caressing his whiskered cheek. She moved her lips towards his before the pair gave a soft kiss, embracing each other in the process. The two separated, the lack of air apparent. The woman smiled again saying, "That's for the moonflower and the compliments." Naruto smiled, nodding in understanding. "I'll be waiting for you, Naru-kun." The purple-haired Anbu spoke softly before putting on her mask. "I'll do my best to not keep you waiting, Yuzuki-chan," he replied genuinely. Youkai felt heat rise to her face before waving her goodbye, leaving in a swirl of leaves. Naruto smiled before putting his mask in his cloak pocket. Naruto sat in the ramen vendor eating his second bowl. His mind was still on Tsunade and Youkai for a while before it began to wonder about the Kage meeting. This trip will not come without something bad happening. The blonde thought solemnly. And something tells me that this meeting isn't all that it seems. The golden-haired man checked his inventory on his person and figured he could get another pack of explosive paper. You never know when you need a good bang, he thought, laughing quietly to himself. He paid for his bowls before leaving to buy more explosive tags. Naruto. The human sacrifice looked back to see Sakura coming his way. Naruto did not say a word, instead continuing to walk ahead. The medic looked confused. "I know he heard me," she whispered to herself. She ran to catch up with her former teammate. "Naruto, why didn't you stop?" the pink cat asked. The golden-haired man looked at her heatedly before looking back on the road that they were on. The pink-haired Mednin was hurt by his actions. "Why aren't you talking to me?" she asked with frustration. Naruto simply kept walking. Sakura walked in front of him and stopped. "What's going on? Why are you ignoring me?" Naruto didn't stop walking and became intangible to pass through her and returning tangible when he fully passed through. The apprenticed Mednin started to tear up before the fox container stopped walking. He looked her way before saying, "I know what you want. I kept my promise, Sakura-san." He continued his walk on the road. Sakura was at a loss for words. She knew he was referring back to when he returned Sasuke. She flat out ignored him when he would try to talk to her. He continued before one day, he just disappeared, later on learning that he was exiled from the village. She always thought that he would bounce back from anything she did to him, but she forgotten something that is common law to everyone in this world. Everyone has a limit. She realized that he reached his and didn't want any dealings with her. He even dropped the Chan from my name, the Chunin thought in sadness. She ran in front of him once more before saying, "Naruto, I need to apologize to you." The swordsman interrupted her. "I have already forgiven you, Sakura-san. I just need some time before I can talk to you." A show of hurt flashed in his eyes before disappearing. The female of Team 7 was taken aback before she replied, I understand." Naruto said, "Have a good day then." He walked past her, impassive. Sakura looked on as he continued walking away, sorrow hitting her emotions. "Just how much did I hurt him?" she asked, ashamed of herself and actions. As for how bad she hurt him, it was more than she would ever know. Naruto had been walking around to find a shinobi shop silently for 15 minutes now. "Naruto-kun, we're here if you want to talk about it. You don't have to distance yourself," the nine-tailed vixen offered soothingly. The phantom shinobi remained silent. "Please, you don't have to deal with it alone," the white wolf spoke in a gentle tone. Naruto was touched at their concern, but he was saddened that they were worried for him. "Don't be so sad for me. I'll be fine. Just don't be sad, alright?" he responded back to them. He suddenly felt heat rushing in his body before it disappeared. "What the hell was that?" the swordsman asked, surprised. QB and Amaterasu grinned. "Since can't get out and give you a hug, we just decided to give you one from here," QB exclaimed cheekily. Naruto flushed lightly. "So how did it feel?" Amaterasu asked in curiosity. The blonde-haired man fought down another blush. He was about to reply when he bumped into someone. Still standing, he looked down to see the Gain Jutsu mistress with the serpent mistress. "I'm sorry, I should have been paying attention." The man apologized, grabbing a hold to their slender hands to pull them up. Earlier that day, Anko asked Kurenai to help her find the person they just crashed into. The brunette agreed to help her because though she won't admit it, she too wanted to find and thank him. Plus I want to get to know him better. Thought the red-eyed woman. Anko on the other hand, wanted to thank the dark blue-eyed man for destroying the Sound Village, as well as nearly killing their Kage off. She was so elated when her friend agreed to find Naruto, she dragged her around until they both collided into the person they were looking for. Now both of the kunoichi felt a hand on theirs to help them back up. Anko scratched her head sheepishly. Sorry about that. I was just in a rush to find you and ended up dragging Nai-chan with me. Now Naruto had question marks over his head. You were in a rush to find me? For what? He asked, honestly perplexed. The provocative kunoichi grinned. I wanted to thank you for destroying the snake's little village. Naruto's eyes shined in revelation. Now it makes sense. You're welcome Anko-chan. Anko beamed and Kurenai smiled. Naruto looked at the red-eyed woman. So you agreed with her because you wanted to see me again Kurenai-chan? The ninja swordsman asked teasingly. The black-haired woman blushed. Anko looked on and smirked. Perfect blackmail material. So that's why I didn't have much of a fight from you. I don't blame you. He is pretty sexy. Anko exclaimed, further embarrassing the bandage-wrapped jounin. Naruto chuckled at the kunoichi's misfortune before catching a glimpse of a black mark on the Takibetsu jounin's shoulder. That must be the curse seal she has. I wish I could take it off of her. He thought to himself. Then he got an idea. Rasu-chan, your chakra has healing abilities, right? Amaterasu replied, that's right. And Kaiu-chan, your chakra is so potent that other invading chakra can't coexist more or less, right? Naruto questioned again. Basically. Kyuubi replied. Naruto smiled triumphantly. The fox and wolf beings were a bit lost. What are you planning? The red-haired woman asked. You'll see. The jailer answered cryptically. Naruto. Anko yelled. He spaced out for a minute on them and they were trying to get his attention. The golden-haired man heard her and replied, yes Anko-heim. That caused the purple-haired woman to blush. Kurenai and Naruto saw her reaction, but the Genjutsu expert saw this as payback. Naruto-kun, I think she likes the name. Kurenai said slyly. Naruto smirked a little. Really? Well maybe that will be her nickname from now on he said in a smooth manner. Not the one to be outdone, the purple-haired woman played along. I would love that Anko said as she pushed herself to him, allowing him to feel her ample breasts before her hot breath came by his ear. Naruto-sama. Well then the fox container started as her looked her in the eyes and gotten close to her face. The purple-haired woman could see him getting closer to her lips, which made her blush a little from anticipation. Their lips were centimeters apart before he changed course and said in her ear, sorry to disappoint, my dear. He pulled back with a foxy grin. The two jounin were shocked. Kurenai thought he was actually going to kiss her friend. She let go of a breath she didn't know she was holding. Why was she slightly relieved that he didn't kiss her? I have a suma. She thought. I can't be getting any feelings for Naruto. Right. She shook her head, trying to get her thoughts together. Anko on the other hand felt robbed. She actually wanted him to kiss her, but he didn't. Then the provocative kunoichi realized. She was out-eased by Naruto. The two women were caught up in their thoughts when they felt a light tap on their foreheads. They both came back to reality to see Naruto giving them a sly smile. Back on the road of life are we? That's good. Well Anko-chan, I actually may have found a way to get rid of a mark that doesn't belong. The ninja swordsman said, looking at the snake user solemnly. Anko looked a bit startled, but quickly hid it. There was just no way he could take this curse seal off. Her face showed her doubt and the Jinchuriki looked at her in understanding. It's your choice Anko. If you want to give it a try, then come with me. Naruto offered while walking to a training ground. Both women looked at the man leaving. What if he can't take it off? I don't want to get my hopes up for nothing. Anko said in anger and depression. Kurenai looked at her friend and posed a question to her. Would you rather live life not knowing if he can take it off? The serpent mistress thought about it before running to catch up to the ninja swordsman with her friend following her. They finally reached a clearing in the forest and Naruto stopped walking. He looked at Anko and said, I see that you wanted to take a chance on me. The purple-haired woman nodded. Naruto took a breath. Alright then. I need you to expose the seal. A warning to you though. This may hurt a great deal. Are you sure you trust me? Anko gazed at the man. Yeah, I trust you. If you aren't able to take it off, it'll be alright. She finished with an empty downcast look. Kurenai supported her best friend by gripping her shoulder to let her know that she was there for her. Anko smiled from the gesture. Naruto glared in determination. I won't fail you Anko-chan. He thought fiercely before calming himself in concentration. He moved behind Anko's now exposed shoulder. Ready? The blonde asked calmly. Anko smiled a little. Not really. Kurenai and Naruto laughed lightly. This may feel a bit strange. he announced as his right hand touched a curse seal with became ghost-like, entering the area without piercing her skin. He felt a bundle of sinister chakra in his hand as he gripped it, sending light shivers up his arm. The Takebetsu Jounin felt something oddly calming enter the normally chaotic shoulder area. It was light and a bit warm. Now the tricky part. Naruto said to himself. Kaiu-chan, bring out some of your chakra. He felt QB's chakra flow in his chakra system. He controlled it to his intangible arm and to his surprise, it worked. The crimson chakra went to his hand and began to exterminate the curse seal's chakra. Anko growled in pain while holding on to Kurenai's hand for support. Her growls became louder until they were screams of pain. Naruto tuned it out to concentrate on the task at hand. Almost there. He thought. He looked at Kurenai who was trying to help Anko deal with the pain. Alright. Rasu-chan, I need your chakra now. He felt the holy being's chakra enter his system and guided it to his now intangible left hand that was entering the curse seal area to raise the final roots of the curse seal. Destroying the last of the curse seal, Naruto took out his right hand and stopped the flow of the Ninetales chakra there, willing his hand back to tangibility. His left hand stayed in the area to heal what the two chakras may have damaged. Anko's screams of pain ceased to become low moans of relief and pleasure. This was the most heavenly feeling she ever felt in her life. The Genjutsu specialist watched in fascination as the dark blue-eyed man pulled his remaining hand out. His arm went from bright orange to white and finally become tangible. Anko felt the divine sensation fade from her body. She touched the spot that Orochimaru bid her to give the tainted seal and was shocked to find nothing there. She was filled with so many emotions, she passed out. But before she did, she turned to the whiskered cheek man and thought, I'm finally free. Kurenai caught her limp body before looking at the blonde man in awe. You took it off of her. Naruto was still trying to catch his breath. Trying to control your own chakra and tangibility level while guiding two different nature chakras was anything but simple. It wasn't easy. The Genjutsu mistress hugged the former pariah for all he was worth. She's finally liberated Naruto, her burden is finally off of her. She said with her voice muffled in his chest. Tears of elation slid down her cheeks as she released him. Thank you. Naruto looked at her in surprise. He didn't expect this reaction out of the black-haired woman. They must have been like sisters, the golden-haired man thought. Don't worry about it. The crimson-cloaked man grinned. Though, she may need to lie down and rest for a while for her body to get situated without the seal. Kurenai nodded and picked her friend up. I'll take her to my apartment to keep an eye on her. You're welcome to come. Kurenai said with a bit of hope in her exotic red eyes. The ninja swordsman started to open his mouth to say yes, but Asuma came to mind. I would like to, but I need to restock on my supplies. I have somewhere to be and I don't think I'll be back for a week. The QP host replied. The Genjutsu user was slightly saddened but nodded in understanding. Well, when you come back, the bandaged woman started. Please stop by. Maybe we could go for a walk. Plus, I'm sure Anko would want to thank you. She giggled. Naruto laughed a little before giving a warm smile. Alright then, Kurenai-chan, I'll make sure to do that when I get back. The red-eyed woman nodded. Well, I need to get Anko to her resting place, so we'll see you later, Naruto-kun. The woman said with a slight blush and hurriedly walked away. The ghost ninja nodded and continued his trek to the shinobi shop. She must really be worried for Anko-chan. Naruto thought in his mind. Gathering his thoughts, he recounted everything he needed to replenish for tomorrow. Kurenai, on the other hand, was lost in her head. Any longer and I would have kissed him. She thought, glowing brightly in her face before feeling guilty. I'm betraying Asuma with my thoughts. I can't do that. The Genjutsu mistress growled at herself in frustration before looking at the sky in sadness. I don't know what to do. Naruto was having a conversation with his tenants on what transpired with the Takebetsu Jounin's curse seal. Since he finally restocked his supplies, he decided to walk around. He would be leaving for a mission tomorrow, so he figured he could relax a little. So you wanted to take off that curse seal off of her? QP inquired. Yeah. Thanks for cooperating with me. The Jinchuriki thought gratefully. Amaterasu smiled. He would always go out of his way to help someone in need. So you used my chakra to heal the injuries from the clash of Kaiu-chan's and the evil seal's chakra. I must say, I'm impressed. The holy wolf said approvingly. The nine-tailed spirit nodded in agreement with a grin. Ah, Naruto-kun, you're finally thinking outside of the box. The red-haired woman said. Naruto smirked. Maybe a little, he replied. Well, since you are thinking outside of the box, how about we come out and test Kaiu's theory? The celestial being said with a grin. Naruto paled for a second before returning to his natural skin color. Or how about you two come out and we can just walk around Konoha? The swordsman suggested. Both higher beings smiled in excitement. Alright. But what form to take? The nine-tailed vixen asked. Amaterasu said, how about our animal forms? We already used our human forms this morning. QB nodded in agreement. Naruto shrugged. The dark blue-eyed man turned to an empty street to summon the Ninetales out without alerting the villagers. Amaterasu flashed out of the seal in her wolf form wagging her tail. QB poofed into existence as a small fox with one tail and hopped on her jailer's shoulders, curling herself against his neck. "Thank you Naruto-kun," the guardian said. Naruto smiled and scratched behind her ear as a "you're welcome," causing her to purr in content. Naruto moved his hand to the white wolf's ears as he started to pet it in content. The wolf rubbed her head into his hand in appreciation. The trio walked back out on the main street and continued walking around. "Hey Naruto." The said man turned to see Shikamaru, Choji, Kiba, Neji, and Lee walking his way. Naruto grinned. "How's it going, everyone?" Lee gave a huge smile. "It is going great. Watching your youthful flames shine brightly yesterday was inspiring," Lee exclaimed. Kiba laughed heartily. "Yeah, watching Sasuke and his team getting their asses handed to was funny." Everyone laughed. Neji chuckled. "I was beginning to wonder if nothing would stop my boredom. Watching the Uchiha and his team suffer utter defeat greatly entertained me." Naruto grinned foxily. "Glad you all enjoyed the show." Shikamaru smiled and asked, "So how have you been?" The ninja swordsman shrugged. "I've been alright. How were you all while I was gone?" Choji frowned. "It wasn't the same without you man." The Akamichi said with everyone nodding their heads. Kiba looked at the wolf beside Naruto. He didn't have his partner with him due to him resting after going to the vet earlier, so he couldn't confirm that this was the wolf Akamaru was afraid of. "So Naruto, is that the summon you used yesterday?" the Inyazuka inquired. The human sacrifice looked at the white-furred animal sitting beside him. Why yes it is. Her name is Rasu-chan, an Akami summon." The said wolf looked at Kiba and nodded. The dog associated Nin looked at the blonde in surprise. "They said that the wolf contract was lost. Where did you find it?" he asked in shock. Naruto suppressed a laugh while Amaterasu looked at the Inyazuka with mirth. "Well," the swordsman started. "It was never lost." Shikamaru looked at the whiskered man. "So someone was just holding it." Naruto smiled replied, "Glad to see your deduction skills haven't dulled." Now the Hyuga was curious. Neji asked, "Who was holding the contract?" Naruto stared at Neji. "Summons can hold their own contracts, can't they?" the crimson-cloaked man proposed. Enlightenment reached the group before they leaned in a bit closer, expecting Naruto to share what happened for him to get the summoning contract. But that's a story for another time. The Jinchuriki finished. The group deadpanned and fell in I'm style, while Naruto grinned cheekily. "See you all later. It was nice seeing you again," the dark blue-eyed man said and walked away with Amaterasu and QB. The rest of the day flew by for Naruto with meetings of different people and loved ones. He even went to see his old sensei Iruka, having a good long talk. Afterwards, he hung out with the wolf and the fox in their human forms. He could remember the jealous glares that he was getting and the flirts that those two were receiving. For QB, it was truly ironic. The people who treated Naruto the worst were the ones that were coming on to her the most. Her host had to calm her down so she wouldn't kill them. He went to the apartment tired and decided to sleep early to be better rejuvenated for tomorrow. Thanking the golden-haired man for the quality time, the fox and wolf beings returned to the seal to get some sleep also. He laid his next set of clothes on the drawer by the bed and climbed into the sleeping mattress with sleep awaiting him. He went unconscious as soon as he hit the mattress. Naruto stood at the main village gate calmly waiting for Tsunade and Tenzo. It was 7:55 AM, 5 minutes until they were supposed to leave for the meeting place of the village leaders. The golden-haired man sensed another presence in the area and simply looked in the direction where it was most felt at. The figure came from the trees to reveal the Tora Anbu from yesterday. The masked man chuckled. "You found me so fast," the brown-haired man said. Naruto smiled a little and replied, "Yeah, but if I had been someone else, I don't think I would have, Tora-san." The man unmasked himself and said, "It'll be a pleasure working with you Naruto. Call me Yamato." The Jinchuriki smiled and nodded. Footsteps were heard, and both nins turned to see Tsunade, Shizune, and Jiraiya coming their way. They wore their usual clothes with the exception of Tsunade, holding the Hokage robes in her hand. "Glad you two are on time," the fire shadow said with a smile. Both escorts nodded. "Jiraiya take care of the village," the now younger woman instructed. The toad sage nodded. "And Shizune take care of this idiot." Jiraiya sulked while the med nin giggled and replied, "Will do Tsunade-sama." Naruto noticed a difference in Jiraiya. His marks were the same, but his body seemed more built. Overall, he looked younger. "So how do you feel Jiraiya?" the blonde man asked. "I feel great. Now it'll be easier to get women," Jiraiya exclaimed in perverted excitement. Tsunade's eye twitched and she asked, "Now how are you going to do that when you won't have any precious inspiration to help you?" Jiraiya paled and quickly fixed his last statement. I mean it'll be easier to get women and men to realize their full potential in the shinobi arts, with me being Hokage. He finished with a nervous laugh. Tsunade smiled cheekily. That's what I thought. Shizune shook her head and looked at Naruto with a content smile. She walked over to him, getting his attention in the process. The black-haired woman hugged the Jinchuriki and said, stay safe, alright. Naruto smiled at her concern and returned the embrace. We will, Shizune-chan. He whispered. The said woman blushed and released him. Tsunade smiled and announced, alright, let's get going. Protect the village, Jiraiya. The perverted man nodded and replied, I will to the best of my ability. Shizune waved them goodbye and the escorts waved back. Tenzo and Naruto donned on their masks and faced the village leader. Swan gave a nod and the trio took to the trees. As they approached the borders of the Wind Country, Tenzo spoke. Tsunade-sama, we are being approached by 3 high-level chakra signatures. Naruto nodded and grinned beneath his mask. Yeah. I think we know them. The female Sana nodded. Alright, we'll stop and wait for them. Yamato looked at his leader. Are you sure that's the best course of action? When the female blonde was about to answer, 3 figures with cloaks came into the clearing. The woman on the left had sandy blonde hair held in 4 short, spiky ponytails. She wore a black battle kimono with a red sash, accentuating her womanly curves. On her back was a giant battle fan. The man on the right wore a black jumpsuit with a cat-like hood that hid his hair. He wore red war paint on his face and had a huge bandaged article on his back. The man in the middle had Kazekage robes held on the back of his gourd. He had blood-red hair and a kanji for love on his head above his left eye. He had thin black rings that outlined his eyes, showing his lack of sleep. Ara. How's it going? Naruto spoke, elated to see his friend. The Kazekage smirked. All is well, Shira. The former psychotic man replied underhandedly. The Wind Shadow's escorts looked at the wolf-masked man in major caution. Who are you to address our leader with such familiarity? The battle fan woman asked calmly. Tsunade and Yamato looked at the Yurei and shook their heads. So you didn't tell them who I was? The crimson-cloaked man asked in surprise. Gaara chuckled, shocking everyone but the swordsman. Well, I didn't see why I should. If anything, that is up to you. Naruto smiled in understanding. How respectable, my good friend. The golden-haired man replied. The ninja swordsman looked at the 2 beside the red-haired man. Well, I guess I could tell you. I'll give you a hint. I was the kid in orange at the Chunin exams. Both siblings thought simultaneously, the little shrimp that defeated Gaara. They could never forget that brat. Everyone laughed at the expression on the 2 Sunanin's face. The QB host compassed himself and said, now that you 2 know, I trust you to keep it a secret. Alright. They nodded, still shocked. Thanks. The black masked man said. So you want to travel together? Tenzo asked the Kages. Tsunade shrugged. I don't mind. She said. Gaara smiled a bit and said, that's fine. With that said, the group took to the trees together. As they made their way to Iron Country, Temari looked at the man who defeated her brother. Naruto. Of all the people who could have been the Shirayure, it was Naruto. She thought in disbelief before chuckling to herself. I never guessed it. He's a lot taller now. The wind mistress flushed a little, unconsciously checking him out. I wonder what he looks like behind that mask. Needless to say, Temari promised herself to find out what Naruto looks like behind his mask before the Kage summit meeting was over. The Hokage and the Kazekage group reached the snow-covered country in a day and a half's time. They went to their reserved rooms in the hotel before the escorts were given the day to laze around to wait for the rest of the Kages to show. During that time, Naruto decided to get to know Yamato. The QB host learned that his name was really Tenzu, a man that Orochimaru had experimented on as a child that left him Mokuton abilities. They got along great, each exchanging stories of their lives before going over their abilities and what battle combinations they could do. Afterwards, Tenzu left for the bathhouse, leaving Naruto alone. The golden-haired man sat on the roof without his mask on, thinking about the events for tomorrow, before looking at the moon high above his head as the snow calmly fell down. Something troubling you? A raspy voice asked. Naruto didn't turn around, but replied, just thinking about tomorrow, Gaara. The red-haired man nodded. I understand. I too feel the ominous ambience of this meeting. The Suna leader said. Can I ask you something? Naruto asked. Gaara just sat next to the ninja swordsman. Can you talk to Shukaku? The Kazekage looked up at the moon. Yes, I can. She revealed herself to me after you saved us from Akatsuki's extraction for her. Gaara gave a grateful look to Naruto before continuing. It was because of the failed extraction that stopped her insanity streak, forcing her to return to her right state of mind. Gaara's fellow Jinchuriki nodded in understanding. So what is her right state of mind? Naruto asked. The wind shadow smiled as sand began to form beside him. Would you like to meet her to find out? Naruto grinned. As long as you don't mind meeting QP. The Hokage escort said, already drawing blood from his hand and performing half-seals. Kuchius. QP no Kitsune. The Ninetales host said, putting his left hand beside him. Smoke erupted to show QP in her human form, giving a calm smile. The sand finally stopped swirling next to Gaara to reveal an elegant tan dark blue-haired woman with tanuki ears at the top of her head. A golden battle kimono that was adorned with navy blue markings covered the curvaceous being. Her eyes were a dark yellow and with slits, unlike her other form that has the star pupil with the 4 dots surrounding it. "Hey, Gaara-kun." The tanuki spoke in a regal tone. The red-haired man's smile stretched a little more. "Hey Shuka-chan. I wanted to introduce you to Naruto, the man who saved you from the extraction." Her eyes shifted from her container to QP's container. She saw the golden-haired man's features before looking at her fellow guardian. "QP?" the blue-haired woman asked. The nine-tailed woman grinned at her. "Hey Shukaku-chan." The red-haired woman greeted. Shukaku looked back at the swordsman before giving a pleasant smile. "So this is your container?" the Tanuki guardian asked. QP nodded. Naruto said, "It's a pleasure meeting you Shukaku-san." Shukaku nodded. "Likewise. And please, drop the formalities. Thanks for preventing the Akatsuki taking me from Gaara-kun." "You're welcome." Naruto replied with a smile. "Now Gaara, I would like to introduce you to Kaiu-chan." QP smiled and said, "Nice to meet you Gaara." The Kazekage nodded and said, "Same to you QP-san." A flash of white appeared before revealing Amaterasu sitting in front of Naruto and QP Harasu-chan. The ninja swordsman said, "Hey Ami." The vixen welcomed. The celestial being smiled and replied, "Hey Naruto-kun, QP-chan." Naruto smiled and turned to the tanuki and her container. "This is Amaterasu-chan." The blonde introduced. Shukaku was shocked and Gaara greeted the holy being. "What are you doing here?" the raccoon dog woman asked in surprise. The wolf woman sighed. "It's a long story." As the two guardians and celestial being conversed with each other, Gaara was confused about the wolf woman. Her name was familiar, but he couldn't figure out why. "I thought you only contained QP?" Gaara asked. Naruto nodded. "I do." The blonde man started. "To put it short, she's the sun goddess." The red-haired man's eyes widened a bit in surprise. "Something major must be arising if she's here." The wind shadow thought aloud. Naruto decided to enlighten him. "Because of the Guardian's capture, the elemental nations are falling into darkness. I'm sure you have been receiving reports of these demons killing some of your nins and plundering small villages." Gaara nodded. "I have." The sand user started. "They are growing at an alarming rate. And they are on par with the Akatsuki in terms of power." The tanuki container finished. Naruto sighed and laughed quietly to himself. "This is more trouble than what it's worth," the golden-haired man said. His fellow jailer silently agreed. "I'm glad you found someone Gaara," Naruto said out of the blue. Gaara was surprised from the sudden conversation change from the whiskered man. "I will admit I didn't think it would work out for me, but imagine my surprise when she returned those feelings." The Sand Jinchuriki said with a small smile. The dark blue-eyed man quietly chuckled to himself. Naruto turned his gaze from the moon to the red and white-haired women, smiling and talking with Shukaku. The ghost nin shook his head rather dejectedly. Gaara patted his brother on the shoulder, startling him. "It'll work itself out." The crimson-cloaked man said, "Sometimes I wonder." The human sacrifices and their prisoners continued to talk for a little while longer before going back to their hotels to rest for tomorrow. When the two young adults in Jinchuriki went to bed they both thought, "Tomorrow is going to be a long day." The end. So how was this part? I hope you like it. And if you like it, share this part with your friends and like the video too. And don't forget to subscribe our channel for daily awesome fanfiction. Okay, it's time for me to go. Bye bye.